What's up, guys? Welcome back to the show. I hope everyone had a fantastic Full Gear weekend and got to witness the crowning of the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion, that of course being Hangman Adam Page. He finally completed his over 2-year journey, at least 2 years plus now at this point, journey to win the big one, to become the heavyweight champion and to be the focal point and the star of the show and the man that everyone is coming after to take his spot. So it was just, this unfortunately isn't going to be a full AEW Full Gear breakdown, just timing-wise. I kind of missed my window there, and I feel like it's a little late now with it being Tuesday and all, but if you haven't seen, at least try to go back and find some clips if you weren't able to see the full pay-per-view itself, but just the match itself and the ending and just the way everything played out, and with the Young Bucks there and kind of them giving their nod of approval and not interfering and trying to do a screwy finish or anything like that. It was just, at least from their end, it was so beautifully told. And like I mentioned in the prediction show and probably the Dynamite review as well, the fact that he, of course, now actually did become champion and is going to have his celebration tomorrow in his home state of Virginia. And by the way, I think it should be illegal that I'm not there tomorrow, being from Virginia. It sucks that I'm not able to make it up there, but sometimes you gotta adult, right, guys? It fucking sucks, but it is what it is. But because tomorrow is just gonna be such a badass show, and just the reception that he gets. And by the way, he's gotta open the show, right? He's gotta, right when 8 o'clock hits, they gotta give it that maybe a couple second breather, and then just hit his music and just have him start the show and kind of give it the feel of course, not to the same magnitude, but kind of in respect, try to play it off as and tie it into the whole CM Punk return to Chicago and that reception and that emotion, just that raw feeling. And especially with this being the AEW itself debut in the state of Virginia since they've been a touring company, that itself is exciting as well. And the fact that now our hometown guy is coming after newly winning the championship, after the story that they've told, it's just, like, it sounds crazy, but, like, you couldn't have written it better if you tried, which just, of course, shows how amazing the story, the thought process, and the dedication and the time that was put into this, and to actually let it play out, and to have the patience. So, just good shit, man. Just good stuff. And like I said, if you didn't see the pay-per-view, try to find YouTube clips on and see if you can get some clips from the match itself from the pay-per-view. And I'm sure they'll show actual footage from the pay-per-view and just like they normally do, just cut off the end of the actual title victory itself. But just the emotion, and again, just, I don't know, it was just, you had to watch it to see it. But I think, saying all that, I think that with how amazing the moment was on Saturday, tomorrow night on Dynamite is going to be, I think, 10 times that. And if not, then shame on Virginia. But I in that regards, I don't have any doubt. But after saying all that, I think props, of course, have to go to Kenny Omega too. And I tweeted a video out, I think it was yesterday, that Kenny Omega, I don't know honestly when the video itself was recorded proper, but he was meeting with a chiropractor and getting, adjusted and things like that. And he was kind of going over his journey as a wrestler and what inspired him and who he looked up to as a child, which one of them, spoiler, was Ultimate Warrior, which I was kind of surprised at first when he said it, but then thinking about who Kenny is, I mean, not that I know him, obviously, but, like, his character and how, I guess people like to say quote-unquote nerdy, which I guess I would be too, but, like, how into, like, superheroes and, like, anime and stuff like that he is. Ultimate Warrior was kind of like that ultimate superhero at that point. Of course, things change later on once time goes on, but as a kid, yeah, I could totally see that once you really think about just who the Ultimate Warrior persona was in itself. So that was kind of surprising at first, but then kind of cool. And then he also mentioned Rob Van Dam was a influence later on, but the progression that he kind of took you through, explaining who his early influences were and then how it kind of changed as he grew up and got older, and his view on the different companies, WCW, ECW, and of course WWF at the time. It was really cool. And of course, with him being from Canada, the different options that they had to watch it on TV and things like that. So I would definitely check it out. I think it was like probably 45, 50-minute video, but it's definitely worth the time. And for me personally, I'm still trying to get more familiar, or maybe not more familiar, but learn more about Kenny Omega's history as a character and his journey throughout his career. So I'm definitely doing more research on my end. But that was kind of a nice synopsis, and at least in the short run of kind of his journey, what he enjoys and what gets him going and stuff like that. So I would definitely check that out if you haven't yet. But today's show is primarily going to be WWE heavy. Just kind of touching up on some things that's been going on in the past few days, couple weeks. Of course, not surprising, the whole Becky and Charlotte saga that's continuing with the match coming up at Survivor Series this weekend. So we'll get into that later on too. But I did want to just mention also really quick here towards the beginning still, when it's kind of like a varied and a multiple topic show like today, for instance, and not like just like a one specific show review. I'll drop time codes as best I can in the show notes. So if this is like listening to it on Apple, for instance, you should be able to see it in the show notes. So if you don't want to listen to the full thing, or you kind of want to skip around and listen to a specific topic, you can kind of do that. So just a heads up on that, because I know sometimes too, I kind of like just want to, at a certain point during the day, or if I'm not trying to listen to a whole episode right now, I just want to get to like a specific topic and kind of keep it moving. So just a quick heads up there, but I'll try to do that as much as possible. But like I said, if it's like a Dynamite review, I'm not really going to break it down match by match. It'll just kind of be a full rundown of the show itself. But just like I said, a quick heads up there too. But like I said, today is WWE heavy, and of course, what I'm going to start off with is Becky and Charlotte, because I think to me, that's the number one, well, maybe not the number one thing, but at least going into Survivor Series, the number one story that I'm looking forward to. Maybe match-wise as well, but story at least relating to the two of them in regards to each other, right? Roman Reigns has his own story going on SmackDown, and Big E has his own stories going on Raw. But I will give them at least a little bit of credit. They at least had Big E acknowledge Roman on Raw last night, and the Usos kind of came out and attacked him, so that was at least something going into it, since, you know, the show itself is actually this weekend, so they literally waited to the very last minute. And it'd be cool to see if Big E shows up on SmackDown, or if they just have the New Day attack Roman backstage or anything like that. But that's why I say, I feel like, I mean, obviously they could have put way more into a story between Big E and Roman Reigns proper, but that's why I kind of say the Charlotte and Becky story itself is more intriguing to me going into it, because it's an actual story. And like a lot of people have been talking about now, and kind of beating it into a dead end at this point, but I think the interviews, and it's sad to say, but the interviews that they've done outside of Raw or SmackDown, they being Becky and Charlotte, but of course, but I think the interviews that they've done outside, and Becky's, I believe, it was with SportsIllustrated.com, and that was from maybe a week ago, a little over a week ago, and then Charlotte just recently did one with, I believe, a gentleman from the UK when they were just on their most recent UK tour, but it just dropped yesterday itself. And it's sad that the interviews that they do outside of WWE is more compelling and more intriguing and more real and more realistic and more relatable than anything they've been doing on the shows itself, which just, of course, goes into the whole scripted nature, which is a whole other topic I'm not going to get into today, because that'll be a whole show in and of itself. But, and I will say, again, giving credit where it's due, Becky's promo last night on Raw was everything that it should have been. It was believable. She started off with saying, kind of giving a brief rundown of their history, how they were friends and how they were best friends, and had, I know if you follow them on Instagram, you would see that they were pretty inseparable at the time too. They would have like tea time or whatever it was, and it was just like they came up in the business together. And then she got to a point where she realized that being Charlotte Flair's friend comes with conditions, and once she had a specific line that really stood out, and I'm not going to quote it word for word, but essentially Becky, once she slapped Charlotte Flair, she slapped her so hard that it sent her into a different stratosphere, she being Becky, and that was so well played, and I don't know if that was written for her or if she just came up with it herself, but it was kind of poetic in a sense because it really did. The slap that she was referring to was when she slapped Charlotte to essentially turn heel, and that backfired, which then skyrocketed her into being the man. And of course, that led to the punch, and ironically around Survivor Series time itself, and that was the whole lead and build into it. And then because it was SmackDown, yeah, it was the SmackDown brand invading Raw, and that led to Nia Jax punching Becky in the face and just shattering her face, and just that iconic photo that we got. And it's so crazy to think how far we've come since then in some regards, and then how little we have in others, which is a whole other, like I said, topic for itself, the women's division in its entirety. But that just leads to the point that when you just kind of let your guard down and just kind of let real life happen and just let real shit play out. And at this point, whether they're truly friends or not I don't really care, and I don't want to know. Like I may have mentioned in the past, like I don't want to know if they resolve things backstage and they're good to go now. Like that's the fun part about it. This is like one of the only things that in WWE world, at least I should say, that we have to really hold on to story wise. So I'm just enjoying it for what it is. But the interviews that, like I was starting to say, the interviews that they've been doing separately are what's, for me personally, drawing me into this feud. And if you haven't seen it, definitely go out and check it. I would recommend the video version if you can watch the video rather than the audio, just because just seeing their demeanor, especially Becky, it's vast differences in my opinion, but Becky's demeanor was more relaxed and chilled and just kind of more welcoming with when she was doing hers with Jimmy, I believe his last name is Trivia, for SportsIllustrated.com. And Charlotte's was more, Charlotte was, I should be fair, was in a completely different setting too. She was actually on site with one of the reporters there in the UK, whereas Becky, I'm assuming it was through Zoom or a video conference feature like that. So Becky was most likely at home. I think she was even wearing, I think it was like a Simpsons sweatshirt. So it was just really cool, and just, so that context, it has to be there as well, to be fair. But that's why I say the video it's so much cooler to see, because Becky, when she was asked the question specifically related to Charlotte, she kind of was a little bit more hesitant, and you can kind of see a little bit more emotion, and that it really truly did impact her. Now, again, she could just be completely playing this off, or I could be reading too much into it, but you just kind of got this sense that it was affecting her a little bit more personally. And of course, then what you see for the character, Big Time Bex on Raw, this was actually like Becky, the actual human being. So whether, like I said, it was real or not, she sold me, and she made me buy into it, and she made me believe. And there was at one point towards the end of the Charlotte topic in itself for that interview, when Jimmy had asked Becky if things were difficult, and Becky just kind of just in a lower voice said yes. And that obviously could be taken multiple different ways. It could be difficult, not necessarily in what quote unquote the rumors have been. It could be various difficult reasons, right? But I don't know. I like that they're playing it up, and I like that Charlotte actually, because for a while they had prohibited her from doing any type of media. So I'm glad she actually got her opportunity to address it a little bit. And I think her clip was a little bit over 10 minutes. So I would maybe devote an hour, maybe total, if you guys got it, to checking out Charlotte and Becky's videos and interviews, for that matter, regarding the subject. But Charlotte, in her interview, which I would definitely, like I said, go and see for yourself, but at the end, she did, of course, mention at one point when he was asking specific questions in regards to her run and maybe some rumors that are out there. She had asked him, is it because I'm a woman that I'm labeled as being difficult? And if I was a man, I would be quoted as having balls. And, that's so true, like, it very much is a real thing. And regardless if the mass see it, it unfortunately is true. And someone in her position, regardless of what's true or not, she does have to stand up for herself. And women do unfairly get kind of judged, and unrightfully so. And it's just, I don't know, it's not going to get into that, which is a whole other cluster fucking in of itself. But it was a very interesting take, and I'm happy she actually voiced it and actually verbally said it. And she repeated herself too when he had kind of brushed it off and moved on. She asked again. She was like, "No, is it because I'm not a man, or is it because I'm a woman?" So, like I said, that's why you should definitely check it out and get a better idea and feel for it there. But the line that she ended with that I really enjoyed in regards to her match at Survivor Series with Becky Lynch. She stated that there's going to be no debate on who the best women's wrestler is. And I love that she said women's wrestler and not superstar or anything, or and didn't woo. Like, she was just herself. She was just real. And like I said, regardless of if this is really real or if they've squashed their beef or whatever is going on, I just love the route that they're taking. And I love that Charlotte was at least given an opportunity to address it, because this may not be a popular take, but I don't necessarily think Charlotte is completely in the wrong here. And until we have full information on from both sides and the truth of the matter and what actually happened, which we probably never will, which is why this is kind of like an irrelevant point once you really think about it, since we probably would never have all the true facts. But I will say that Charlotte should be standing up for herself, and if she thinks that she is being disrespected, then absolutely, whether she's a man, woman, whatever, like she should stand up for herself. And if you are backstage, anyone in that position, in that top position, would. Like, we've seen countless men do it in the past. You have Austin, Steve, like Austin, The Rock, like everyone, I'm sure, have stated, yeah, I am going to do something, or no, I'm not going to do something, if they felt maybe for a character direction or anything like that, like it didn't make sense. Like, I'm sure there's been countless people who have stood up for themselves, and this is just one that we're hearing about now. And of course, since it's Charlotte, like everyone, it's just easy to shit on her. And I'm not the biggest Charlotte fan. I'm more towards Becky. Like, if you know me, like, I've always been a huge Becky fan. Like, I paid money to meet her. Like, it's, like I've always been a Becky fan because of her journey, right? And what she's put into it, and just her character. Like, she sold me, right? Like, I bought into it. So this isn't coming from like a huge diehard Charlotte fan, but it is what it is. And I just think that she gets a lot of hate and shit that she maybe rightfully should, or maybe the majority of it is true, but I don't see her doing things that other people haven't done, and maybe they don't get as much heat for it as she does. So it's just kind of an interesting take, but like I said, definitely check out those two videos if you can, and just kind of, and especially the video format, more so than the audio, but whichever one you can, and just see it at least before Survivor Series, because I think it just makes the match itself that much more interesting, especially since Becky had mentioned in her SI interview as well that, if trust is obviously the most important thing when you have a match, and if you can't trust your opponent, it makes it a little bit more challenging and difficult. So I don't know, and again, that could just be playing into it, which I don't even care. Like, I love it. So we'll see how the match plays out, but that's why I said story-wise, like, this is the number one thing I'm looking forward to on Survivor Series itself. Match-wise, it's right up there with Big E and Roman Reigns, and part of me is wondering if they're actually going to main event. Part of me is like, I shouldn't even question that with Roman Reigns being who he is and being Survivor Series and being in New York, but I don't know. I think you can make a nice argument for why the women's champion should main event Survivor Series here, but we'll see. Earlier today, there was also a tweet that was posted by the Twitter account WrestleVotes, which is at WrestleVotes, probably 4 or 5 hours ago by now. But it was in regards to NXT and their TV rating going forward and what changes may be coming in the future. But the tweet itself stated, within the origins of this NXT 2.0 concept was an idea that the program's rating would shift from TV PG to TV 14. Source confirms that's still very much on the table, and USA Network is not opposed. If when WWE decides to make the change is to be determined. Which is an interesting take, and I don't know if you guys have been following NXT 2.0, or you maybe watched Halloween Havoc and then fell off, or just the first episode and fell off, or never watched it from the beginning. Me, I kind of missed it past couple weeks, but I am catching up on it myself. But some of the things that I've seen, it is apparent that they're trying to take, like, I don't, an edgier route, I guess, quote unquote, you can say. They're definitely trying to spice up, like, the women's division appearance-wise and, like, give out that physical attraction vibe that they did in the Attitude Era and try to make the women, what, I guess sexier is what they're probably gearing towards. So, I don't know. And of course, with Mandy Rose being the champion, she, I guess, quote unquote, is the perfect vision, I guess, that they would have for that role if that's truly where they're going women's division wise, which is so crappy. Like, I hope that's not going to be the main focus, which I'm not going to jump the gun there and cast any judgment until it does happen, because I'm hoping that it won't, but could be bittersweet, you know. We all have been hoping for an quote unquote edgier product, or for WWE as a company to leave the PG rating itself, but with seeing how Vince, I guess, because the buck stops with him, right? And that's what we always continuously hear. Seeing how he maybe hasn't grown since the Attitude Era, and like in certain ways, maybe even since prior to the Attitude Era in the early 90s, when it was obviously character driven and character heavy. I don't know. It could be one of those things that we better be careful what we wish for, because if they go back to TV14, what exactly does that mean? Is it going to be back to like the bra and panty type era, which I'm not here for? Like, I clearly don't want to see that. So I don't know the direction, but that's why I'm holding out judgment. And just the fact that it's even on the table again is a bright side itself. So whether it starts with NXT 2.0 as maybe like a testing subject type thing to see if they do change to that rating and they do take an edgier approach, especially with it being on USA Network, and it turns out to be a success and more people tune in each week and they get more engagements on social media and things like that, maybe it could be a better thing. And I mean, God, like they need to change up some shit. So whatever at this point, you know, whatever it takes. But that's why you say that, you know, you kind of have to still be mindful of who's in charge at the end of the day too, at the head. So I just hope that it doesn't turn into a laughing stock in the women's division and back to like 2 and 3 more minute matches and shit like that. So that's my only hesitation in that respect. But man, like it could be an awesome thing, right? Going back to TV14, like at least they won't feel maybe so restricted and confined, which who knows if they even fucking feel that way. But it's just, something's got to give. Like, the format is just the same. Like, you know, for instance, on Raw, when they're going to commercial, the second someone gets thrown out of the ring, like, they're going to go to a commercial break. Like, it's just, like, you can write the show and format the show yourself at some points. And it's frustrating because it's something that we all obviously love and that we've most likely at this point grown up on. And to see it not really grow with us and just kind of remain stagnant in a lot of places, it's frustrating because it doesn't have to. Like, you're a $1 billion company at this point. Like, you have all the resources that you can imagine at your disposal, and you just like choose not to grow. And you have so many talents, like Rhea Ripley or anyone. Like, you have so many valuable assets in the women's division in particular. Like, it's frustrating because you just want to see them have that freedom and see what they can actually do when they have their own direction. So I don't know. We may still be far off from there and it may never happen, but even the fact that it's on the table and hopefully actually is legit, which WrestleVotes is a pretty reputable place from what I've seen in the past and read, but hopefully it is true and at least it's on the table, right? At least there's a glimmer of hope, hopefully. So we'll see what that leads to, though. And if this is truly like a wake-up call for Vince and maybe like a kick in the ass, like for the company itself to just do something different and just take a chance. So, and that's why I say with NXT 2.0, like I'm going to give it like a true shot and try to make it back into a weekly routine of mine. But they just killed so much goodwill with the transformation and just the gutting of the roster itself. Like, it's just, it's hard to watch. And I don't know. I like I said, I'm going to give it another chance though, and see. And what I've saw, it hasn't been bad. You know, there's a lot of good characters out there, so I think I'm going to give it a shot, and I think we all should too. Especially if they do end up being TV14. Like, hey, that's what we've all been bitching and complaining for. So if they do pull the trigger and it does turn to that rating, and I think we all at least owe it to them at that point to tune in for one week and see how it is. Then give it a few weeks maybe after that to kind of let some stuff play out. But we'll see, guys. But a couple more things here, also in the Twitter universe itself, Mustafa, hope I said that right, Mustafa Ali actually had tweeted a video from, I think it was from Saturday, the 13th, so this past Saturday. He had tweeted a video, essentially saying, I didn't write down his caption of the video itself word for word, but essentially saying that it was an idea in a production that isn't actually going to be able to play out, so he was posting it, obviously, online for us to see. And that video itself was about 2 minutes and 46 seconds. And like I said earlier, regarding the Becky and Charlotte videos, obviously go check them out. But if you don't have that much time, about an hour to dedicate, do yourself a favor, like I always say, and spare not even 3 minutes of your time to go into Mustafa Ali's page and checking out this video from the Saturday and his New America. That was the whole concept of the idea. And it's not what you're thinking. Like it's not a stereotypical like heel direction or bad guy or foreigner direction, like who thinks USA sucks or anything like that. It's the story that he told in that 2 minutes 46 seconds was just awesome and amazing and so thought out. Like, and it sucks because that's just another one of those things where if it truly never makes it to Raw, or is he on Raw or SmackDown? Yeah, I believe he's on Raw. If he never makes it truly to WWE TV, I'll just say, then that's, again, just another wasted opportunity, especially for someone like him. If you are a little, like, unfamiliar with his past and his, like, actual personal life, he did an interview a few years ago now with, I believe it was Lillian Garcia on her podcast. And, gosh, I want to say probably now is maybe 2 years ago. But just search for it, obviously, on wherever you're listening to this at. But he just obviously, like, gave us a story, like, his life story and where he's coming from and his different, like, just life experiences. And he shared that he was a police officer in Chicago at one point, and it was just fascinating to learn about him as an individual. But he had mentioned that was at a show at one point, and he had always... There was a little boy, and I'm not going to butcher the story because you definitely need to check that out too. But essentially, like, there was a child that he had saw. He had promised himself that he would never turn heel first, and that he would never be like that, quote unquote, like that stereotypical guy, I guess, or foreigner rather. But he referenced meeting this young boy and how I believe the boy was crying or something to that effect, but it just really impacted him. And I haven't listened to the interview since I first did a couple years ago, so forgive me for not remembering all the details in clarity, but it was pretty much to that effect that what he was portraying, like, really impacted that individual in the crowd, that small child in the crowd. And he had just at that point just promised himself that he would never go that route. So that kind of leads to my point with the narrative of the New America that he was taking in the video that he released on Twitter, and it's not what you would think it is, and it just shows that how he pretty much has had to just figure out how to be accepted in the United States, being someone that looks like he does, and in his background and things like that. And it's just, I don't know. Go check it out, guys. I don't want to give everything away here because it's such a cool story that he did, but it's truly sad if it doesn't make TV because he's just so freaking talented and he deserves so much more than what he's getting. But definitely just check it out, guys. But the last thing I want to mention here too is I am in the middle of reading the Mox book, the Jon Moxley book that he released, and so far it's incredible. Like, I don't really know what I was expecting, but it was what I was expecting. He's just so real, and I love, like, the side notes that he does when he recommends, like, an album or a movie and shit like that. So I'm in the process of finishing that up, and once I do, I'll probably do, like, maybe just, like, a mini episode just dedicated to that book review. But, of course, just continue to keep him in your thoughts and prayers and hope for the best for him and Renee. But just, if you haven't picked up the book, I ended up getting it from Barnes & Noble. Well, I think it was on discount when I got it, but it was like $18, but you can get it for 18, 19, 20 bucks on Amazon too, and get it delivered directly to you. So I would definitely just pick it up if you have the spare cash or interested in Mox, because it's definitely a cool perspective from where he's come from in his career and just stuff that he's dealt with so far in his life. So it's a cool read, but like I said, once I actually finish it, which hopefully will be by sometime this week, I'll be able to get something up on that. But thank you guys again for checking this out, and if you have any feedback or questions for me or anything like that, or just any suggestions or anything at all, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at ASHMANNS, and I'll be talking to you later. Take care, guys.